Hello everyone. So friends, in our previous lecture we discussed about the stub test double. So in this lecture we'll see what is the SPY test double. So friends, what do we mean by SPY? So here SPY test double basically keeps an eye on the external dependency and it basically records whatever interaction has been made with the external dependency. So SPY objects are very similar to stubs, but the only difference is they record the information about how they were executed. So let's say we have a class under test which has an external dependency. Now that class under test, whenever calls any of the method on external dependency, the SPY test double comes into picture and it records whatever the interaction was made between class under test and the external dependency. Therefore the name given to it is SPY because it keeps an eye on the external dependency and its interaction with the class under test. So the SPY is mostly used with the stubbed external dependency plus recording every interaction with the external dependency. Here in our previous lecture we saw that how stub test double works when we want to unit test a system. So SPY works the similar way. We usually stub the external dependency and the only capability we add to it is the recording capability, that it records every interaction with the external dependency. So why we keep the track of the interaction with the external dependency is to actually test the behavior verification of the class under test. Let's look at via an example. Let's say we want to test book service class which has an external dependency, book repository, which communicates with the database. So friends, whenever we want to test the book service class which is dependent on book repository, so instead of calling book repository and accessing the database, what we do is we create a SPY which is a book repository SPY. So the book service method, instead of calling book repository, call book repository SPY, and as soon as they call the book repository SPY methods, the calls are recorded and the response which is sent is a SPYed response, because as soon as the call comes here, now this book repository SPY has a behavior verification capability, and every interaction which book service makes with book repository SPY, we usually record everything here. So friend, why it is useful, we'll see it through a demo. So let's go to IntelliJ, see the SPY test double demo without Mockito. Hello everyone. So friends, in our previous lecture we saw the demonstration of stub test double. Now in this lecture we'll see the demonstration of SPY test double. So friends, we also discussed in our previous slide that a SPY basically help us in behavior verification of the class under test. So SPY basically keeps on track of the interaction made with it so that we can come to know that that particular method was actually called. So for example, when we call add book method of the book service, it internally calls save. So when SPY comes into picture, so we replace the external dependency with a SPY, and the SPY keeps the track of the interaction which is made with it. So it basically let us know a behavior verification in a way that it tells that book repository.save method was actually being called when we did add book. So we'll see that via an example. So here I will be creating one package. We'll keep it in a package as test_doubles SPY. And here what we do is we simply copy these three stuffs which we already discussed in our previous lecture and we'll paste it here. So here you can see that there are two methods in book repository. One is the find all and other is the save. So let's say we remove the find all method, we only keep the save method, and here we remove this find number of books from the book service class. So friends, whenever we want to test now add book method, we know that there is only one line of statement that it calls the book repository's save method. So when this line of code will be executed, nothing will be returned from add book method. So in our test, there is very less possibility to do an assert, and there is no information that whether even this book repository save method was actually called or not. So in order to test the behavior verification capability of book service class, what we do is we bring in a spy, because we can't go to the database by actually instantiating the book repository class. Therefore, we bring in a spy which behaves something like a stub, plus it has also a capability of recording the information or recording the interaction made with it. So here in our test folder, I will be creating one package, spy, and let's say here we create a class spy test. We create a test method as demo spy. So inside this demo spy test method, we'll create the instance of book service. Now it requires a book repository, and we know that we need to provide a test double instead of the actual book repository. So what we do is we create a book repository spy and we pass it to the constructor. Now let's create this class. We'll keep it in the same package. We'll implement the method save. So here, as we have created this book repository spy, now we need to give it a capability to record the every interaction made with this save method. So what we can do is, here we say we create an integer variable which actually keep the track that how many times this save was called. So friends, here this is a very basic example to just demonstrate how spy works. And we create a book variable last added book. So currently it's null. So what we actually do here is, as soon as book service will call this add book method, because we want to test this method, it internally calls the book repository save method. And when it will call the save method, what we do here is we increment this count and we initialize last added book with the book which is passed here. So friends, this is a very basic use case of book repository spy. We could have also created one list here and we have stored this book into the list, and we would have keep the track that how many elements are there in list and whether the list contains a particular book or not. But here I am keeping the example very simple, and here we provide the methods which basically help us in behavior verification. So here we will see the importance of these two methods, that how it helps in behavior verification. So in spy test, after creating the book repository spy, here we'll do book repository spy. Now what we do is we create two books. So here I'll just copy this part. And now what we do is we call book service add book method. We add book 1 and we add book 2. So friends, after adding the book 1 and book 2, we can verify that whether actually this save method was called with this book, which is being passed to the add book through the book repository SPY. So here what we do is, we can assert, let's say we are adding these 2 books. So we can simply call that book repository times called, and we provide the expected value as 2. So we know that we called add book 2 times, and here when the save will be called, the count will increment twice, and when we call times called, it will return 2. So basically it verifies that this save was called with this book. So if I run the test case, so it verifies that book repository save was actually called. Now we'll again provide an assert. Let's say assert true. We call book repository SPY dot called with, and let's say we provide book 2. So here if you see, if we go to called with, it simply let us know that whatever the book we are passing here, it is the actually book which was last added when the save was called. So it basically helps us in verification that the save was called plus the save was called with the actual book we are passing to the book service add book method. So here, if I run the test case now, so here you can see the test case got executed successfully. So friends, here we saw that how SPY test double help us in behavior verification. It provides us a way to know that whether a particular method was being actually called to the external dependency, and it also helps us in knowing that that method was called, like here save, with a book which is being actually passed to this add book method. So friends, here you can see, let's say I provide something, a condition here. Let's say if the book price is greater than 400, I simply return. Now I have provided this condition here. So here in our SPY, we know that book 1 has price greater than 400 and book 2 has price equal to 400. So when we will call add book method and will pass book 1, it won't save the book 1, it will simply return. And when we'll pass book 2, as price is equal to 400, therefore 400 is not greater than 400. So book 2 will be actually saved. So friends, when we actually do the asserts, there is no way we can come to know that this save was called for any particular book or not. So yes, SPY helps us in verifying that whether this save was actually being called or not. So here if you see, when we add book 1, we know that the save shouldn't be called. So what we do is, we simply do assert equals with 0, because when we do add book with book 1, it will check the price and it will simply return, because book 1 has price 500, 500 is greater than 400. So it will simply return and the save won't be called. So the value of the integer will remain to 0. So if I run the test case now, you will see the assert equals was actually succeeded, and we actually verified that save was not called. And now let's say if we are adding book 2, so we expect that save will be called because 400 is not greater than 400. So it will actually call the save and increment the count by 1. So if I run the test case now, so friends, here you can see that this is how a spy helps us in doing the actual behavior verification. So friends, I hope you like this video. Thanks, have a nice day.